Welcome. Welcome everyone to our Best Practice Network webinar with Darian Rodriguez Heyman and Sean Sullivan. I'm going to give the audience a few minutes to join us and we'll get started in a second. Welcome everyone. As audience members are logging in, we'll get started shortly with VolunteerMatch's Best Practice Network webinar, leveraging social capital or social media and tapping volunteers to raise big bucks. For those of you on the line, I want to test our audio a little. So if some of you can look over on your right side panel in the question box and pose a question to me saying, I can hear you, I'm excited. Something of that sort, just to show that we are all hearing the audio. Oh, wonderful. Looks like everyone can hear me. Great. We've had some great turnout for this webinar, and I am very excited to have Darian and Sean with us today. They will be discussing social media and how to use those tools to tap volunteers to raise big bucks for your nonprofit. Darian and Sean are both nonprofit experts and are pulling a lot of their examples from their book, Nonprofit Management 101, A Complete and Practical Guide for Leaders and Professionals. Just to give a little background, Darian Rodriguez Heyman stepped down as the Executive Director of Craigslist Foundation, and he also helped launch the Nonprofit Boot Camp and educated and empowered and connected over 10,000 graduates attending that boot camp. So this new book of his is what we'll be drawing on for today's discussion. We also have Sean Sullivan, a contributor to the book, who's been in the nonprofit field for 15 years. He's held leadership positions at the Covenant House, Equality California, and the Center for Environmental Health. Darian and Sean, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Wonderful. We're very excited to have you. I'll let you give a bit further of an intro on yourselves as we get into the slides. And for those of you on the call, we'll be tweeting about the webinar as we go with the hashtag BPNBucks. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Darian.
Great. Thanks so much, Megan. And thank you, Robert, and the VolunteerMatch team for having us. Both Sean and I are really excited to be with everyone today, and it looks like we've got folks continuing to stream in. But we're going to go ahead and get started. Most of what you're hearing today is really based on the new book that just came out that Megan mentioned, which is called Nonprofit Management 101, and you see it on the screen right now. That's the cover. So basically, I built on my experience and my network that I developed as the executive director of Craigslist Foundation, and in particular as the creator and co-creator of Nonprofit Boot Camp, a one-day conference that really covered all different aspects of starting and running a nonprofit organization with a very strong focus on providing practical tips and tools and connecting emerging leaders to the resources that they need to build a better world. That was a very successful program, and the book is really boot camp as a book. So it covers the spectrum of all aspects of nonprofit management, from fundraising to marketing to technology to board and volunteer management, some of the stuff we'll be talking about today, as well as a few chapters on social media. There's actually 50 different experts that contributed chapters, 35 different chapters, all very practical and comprehensive, and Sean Sullivan, along with Nikki Noble, helped contribute the chapter on peer-to-peer based fundraising. And that's really what we'll be talking about today, which is this kind of intersection of looking at how can we leverage volunteers and supporters and engage them in the fundraising process. And as we as we dive into this, there's also one other thing I do want to mention briefly, which is that we are launching a nationwide conference series. We'll be doing 9 events in 7 cities, including San Francisco, New York, Washington, Chicago, Atlanta, Los Angeles, and Seattle. And if you go to socialmediafornonprofits.org, that's with the number 4. So let's see if I type in socialmediafornonprofits.org. So that will be touring around the country starting June 29th in San Francisco and going up through October 14th in Seattle. Really excited about that, again with a focus on practical tips and tools, but in this case specifically focused on social media. So in terms of today, what I really wanted to focus on, as I mentioned, is looking at this intersection between social media and between engaging volunteers. And I wanted to start out by calling out, one of the things that that Sean and Nikki Noble talk about in their chapter in the book. If you go to nonprofits101.org, which is the companion website to the book, you'll see that you can download a free paper on top 10 fundraising tips. And those are all lifted from the book. One of those tips is specifically taken from Sean and Nikki's chapter, which is really about how to create and tap your social network. And so, wanted to make a couple quick points about that. And first and foremost, I also want to give a nod to the folks that are on the call. Aside from all the nonprofit leaders and managers that are joining us today, I know that there are a few folks coming from the corporate side that are managing corporate, employee volunteer programs, etc. And I just want to make the point that, everything we're talking about today will also relate to you as well as to our nonprofit colleagues. The point here is that, Facebook is now, actually the slide is not even that old, but they're now over 600 million users that have logged onto Facebook in the last month. That makes it the equivalent of the world's 3rd largest nation. So this is something you can no longer afford to ignore. Every month, more people join Facebook than the entire Los Angeles Times subscription base. So this is a huge phenomenon. And it is really changing the landscape in terms of how organizations are able to interact with their supporters and with their constituents. And in general, I think the easiest way to think about this new landscape is this concept of everyone is smarter than anyone. We have entered an everyone is smarter than anyone world. And what do I mean by that? As we really take into consideration this concept of crowdsourcing and Web 2.0, which are terms you hear thrown around a lot. Well, if you look at kind of the old way of doing things as it relates to aggregating knowledge, for example, if you had a book report to write, even when I was a kid, and I'm only 36, you would get the Encyclopedia Britannica and look up your topic and maybe go to the library and do some research. And Encyclopedia Britannica spent millions of dollars and had hundreds of staff that were well paid to aggregate this information. Nowadays, you have something like Wikipedia, which has now been shown to be more accurate than the Encyclopedia Britannica. It's also 6 times as robust, and that's just in English, and they're in more than a dozen languages. And they have a staff of about 10 people. So how is it possible? And the answer is that we've entered this everyone is smarter than anyone world where, it's kind of this many hands make light work approach. And in Ethiopia, there's a proverb that when 1,000 spiders unite, they can tie down a lion. And so the idea at its core of social media is really leveraging this distributed network to achieve great things. And that is something that can absolutely be put to use for causes and for companies. And that's what we're really going to talk about today. The one point I do want to point out that Nikki and Sean mentioned in their chapter is that in addition to leveraging social media for fundraising and for marketing, it's also a really great tool for public recognition and for lifting up your champions and your supporters. But Sean, I wanted to start out with one quick question because I know that as we talk about Facebook being such a huge phenomenon, there's a lot of questions around, in particular in the context of this webinar, as we're looking at how can we leverage peer-to-peer based fundraising and get volunteers engaged to support our nonprofits and our causes. What is the difference between Facebook causes, Facebook groups, and Facebook pages, and which in general is, or what are the pros and cons of each as it relates to peer-to-peer based fundraising?
Yeah, thank you, Darian, and that was a really great introduction. I will talk about causes and groups and pages. They are changing. But first I want to say this is a really great opportunity using your social network to engage people and to get people to really get involved in what you're working on. Darian talked about the amount of people using it. One of the great things about social media, particularly about Facebook, is how while there's all these people out there, it allows for both the business and nonprofit to target people who are most interested in their message. You know, sometimes, and I'm only speaking from a nonprofit experience, but nonprofits work so hard to get in front of potential donors and potential supporters and volunteers for their organizations, and they have the whole world to look at and figure out how do I find people who would have a linkage or interest in the work that we have. Well, Facebook does eliminate rather amazing amounts of work that you as nonprofits or you as marketing people and businesses or in trying to source volunteers. It eliminates thousands of hours of research and lots of hard work and fretting, frankly, of trying to find these people, because people put forth so much information on these social media tools that allows you to harness your message right to them. So I think that is something that should be put right out there in the beginning. And how you use the specific tools within Facebook can only make your job that much easier. So Causes is actually an application that is used on Facebook that nonprofits can set up, but it is not part of Facebook. A lot of people will think that, oh, this is, you know, within Facebook, it's part of Facebook's tools. Well, it is an application, but so is Farmville, and so it is separate from Facebook. But you can use the causes to allow people to learn about your organization. Groups are another way of uniting people around the common idea, around what people are generally looking for. And pages this has changed somewhat, because you used to be able to use groups or pages, but Facebook is actually changing pages and groups somewhat. And now if you get over 100 people, it becomes a little bit harder to utilize and to make changes, for instance, to your header, what you have up on there and so forth. So that's something to take note of.
And so, Sean, I mean, it sounds like what you're saying in part is that for organizations that have a substantial following, pages is not really, or excuse me, groups is not really what you'd recommend, and they should use a page instead?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we want to offer in this call, is trying to provide some guidance around when to use what and what are those resources. I should mention that, you know, I talked about the conference series, and briefly for those that are interested in learning more about social media strategies for nonprofits, I said that on June 29th we'll be kicking off in San Francisco, then we head to DC on July 14th, New York August 4th, Los Angeles August 22nd, Chicago September 27th, and Seattle October 14th, and we're going to announce the Atlanta date shortly. And again, that's www.socialmedia4nonprofits.org. What you're looking at right now is the Nonprofits 101 website, and you'll see in the bottom right here, right below the image of the book, that's where you download the top 10 fundraising tips. And tip 6 is the one that Sean was just talking about a little bit, and it goes more in depth in that free paper that you can get from the website. So let's get into it. And I think that first of all, I wanted to just give you a quick image of Sean and I, so you can see exactly who you're talking to here. So that's Sean on the right, who's over in Oakland and recently ran for office there and has been doing some great work with the Center for Environmental Health. Was also the president of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, Golden Gate chapter here in the Bay Area. And as you heard in Megan's generous intro, I previously worked with Craigslist Foundation as their executive director and was also a commissioner for the environment in the city and county of San Francisco, and recently released Nonprofit Management 101. So that's Sean and I, and we're happy to answer any other questions on the personal front later. But for now, we really want to get into some of the meat of the presentation. And Sean, I wanted to hand it back to you because one of the things that I think was really insightful in the book and in your chapter was the case study that you wrote about the EQCA, Equality California, when they were gearing up and looking to raise a pretty substantial amount of money around the No on 8 campaign for gay marriage. And they did it through this really innovative way that you talk about in the book. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the gay wedding registry.
Yeah, I'm absolutely happy to. What you're looking at before you was what we used at Equality California right when I came on board. It was a site actually designed by in-house staff to find a way to get our message out there, and our message at the time was that marriage should be open for any two adults who wanted to enter it. And California had recently ruled that same-gender marriage, that the exclusion of it was against the Constitution. Then a ballot initiative came on board to try to repeal that. That repeal was ultimately successful. But on our side, we raised over $45 million on the No on 8 side, and Equality California was the leading contributor to that with $14 million. We raised over $1 million through this gift registry that you see before you that did not exist up until June 2008. And this is exactly what we're talking about in terms of peer-to-peer and really harnessing your volunteers and supporters to get their friends involved. And this is so important. We talk a lot about this in the book, but how to really engage people at the things that matter to them and allows them to share this information with other people. You as a volunteer manager or a charity leader always want to get people excited about your work, but no one can do a better job of exciting their friends than the volunteer themselves, than the donor themselves to their network. And so we talk a bit in the book about the idea of the social network and the structure that's made up of individuals or organizations. And this was one way in which we used to put that to work. So if I was getting married, whether it was in those 5-month period of time, we gave people the opportunity to register just as you would do at Crate and Barrel or Macy's or anywhere else, and send this out to friends and say, hey, marriage is same-sex marriage is legal in California. We're getting married. And this also could be used by couples of opposite gender as well who wanted to support this effort. And they send it out to their friends. So as you see on the shot, this is if I went to, there's a login. So it gives your friends the opportunity, or your supporters rather, the opportunity to log in and create their own account. It's very simple, and it should be kept very simple because you have to realize that people's time, even when they're supporting something they like, it has to be easy for the user, and it has to be something that can be quick, and they can get in and get their information, like how many people have donated to me, and send that right out. What it also provides is for someone who's just come to it for the first time, their friend should send them an automatic link but oh, you know, we're all so busy, and I realized I'm about to go to this wedding of this couple that I really like. I don't know where that email is. Let me go to, you know, Google this this registry, and there it comes up. So now let me find a friend's page. That's there too. You really have to make things as easy as possible for everyone. So if there's one takeaway from this conversation, I really want you to hone in on that. Always put the user in mind, as if this is their first time on the page and they have little to no information about your organization. Always try and keep that in mind, because the majority of the time that is the case. You who are working so hard on this effort every day, it matters and it means a lot to you, and even some of your own messaging may not reverberate to you as passionately as it did the first time you heard it. But for so many people coming to your site and coming to you and having the opportunity to share your information, it means a great deal because it is the first time that they're hearing that. So we provided that here on this page, and as I said, we raised $1 million through this effort alone. Some takeaway homework, or if you want to do additional research into this area, is I advised a group called Friend Factor. Friend Factor, as you may know, in this marriage equality issue that's before us at this time, New York is debating this issue as we speak in their legislature, and they found that this was defeated in the legislature last year. So a number of activists came together and tried to figure out how can we convince the legislature and how can we make it, once again, as simple as possible to get people to share their message. And they created this Friend Factor site so that people, regardless of their sexual orientation, could reach out to their friends and say, hey, will you make a call to your legislator? You know, when that comes from an organization like the Center for Environmental Health, we have, like many organizations, a typical open rate. And I think ours is a little higher than most, but we tend to go anywhere from 17 to 20%, and a certain number of those people then take action. Well, that's not what you want if you're really passionate about your cause. You want to be able to follow up and get your friends to do something. And the Friend Factor site, which is sort of built out of this, allows you to send out information to your social network and get them to get involved in your cause, which for New York right now is calling up their legislators. And again, it's made easy. People can put in the legislators that need to be contacted. Earlier, before it actually got brought to the session of the Assembly, it allowed people to get connected to their local official. Now that their local officials are hopefully on, it's now moved to contacting these people. And also they're fundraising through it as well, and that's where in some areas I was able to help the Friend Factor group get that started. So you see two different ways of using similar tools.
That's great. Thanks so much, Sean. And you know, a couple points that you made there that I wanted to underscore. First off, I mean, especially as we talk about peer-to-peer based fundraising through social media, at its core, the reason why it's so powerful is that, you know, Fundraising 101 teaches us that the most successful, the most effective kind of ask is what kind? It's a peer ask, right? It's when you ask one of your friends to do something, right? When a board member invites one of their colleagues or contacts to join them in supporting an organization. And that, at its essence, at its core, is really what peer-to-peer based fundraising through social media, you know, makes possible. And that is something that you can do with your board, with your staff, but also with volunteers, which is what we're here to talk about today. You know, a couple other things that when Sean brought up his point about, you know, making it easy, keeping the user in mind, and kind of trying to get outside of your own perspective, you know, there were a couple of related points that came up in the Nonprofit Management 101 book that I just very quickly want to mention. One is around the power of repetition and of repeating your marketing messages and your copy. So when you spend the time to come up with that elevator pitch and really get some language that works and is an effective way to explain your work and the impact that you're having in the world, it's important to repeat those messages over and over again. And I think the quote from the book is that just when you're starting to get sick of those messages, that's when other people are starting to remember them. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Another thing is that, you know, when it comes to online fundraising or online actions around advocacy or otherwise, the number of clicks that it takes the person to actually make a contribution or get engaged in whatever way you're trying to get to is directly inversely proportional to how many people will make it there. What I mean by that is that the more clicks it takes you to donate, the less people, you're going to lose people at every single click through in your website or every single click through that it takes to sign a petition or get engaged in a campaign. So to the extent you can minimize that, and in no case should it be more than 3, so from any page on your website, you should be able to make a contribution within 3 clicks. So how does that work, and what do you need to do to get it there is huge. And then the final thing I want to quickly point out as it relates to online fundraising, one of the other tips highlighted in that free paper, that Top 10 Fundraising Tips paper from Nonprofits 101 that are lifted from the book, is about this concept of making your donation button shine. And, you know, Network for Good, who wrote that chapter, did a study, actually, which is one of the amazing things you can do with online fundraising, is you can actually monitor the impact of small little changes like turning your donate button from gray to red. Well, when they did that on their own website, they got 30% more donations immediately with the red donation button. And maybe that's not appropriate for you, or maybe your color's blue or what have you, but the important thing is that you can play around with that and you can very quickly and effectively tell the ROI of those kinds of decisions. So I wanted to quickly point that out. I did notice that a couple people had sent in some questions about wondering if this PowerPoint is going to be accessible after the webinar. And I do want to just quickly mention that the VolunteerMatch folks have graciously agreed to send out a PDF of the PowerPoint. So we'll either get that posted online or email that to all the participants. So you can be on the lookout for that. I also saw that there were quite a few questions around you know, the Facebook conversation that Sean and I were having earlier. So I wanted to circle back to that because one of the first questions, which is pretty straightforward, but I think it's an important one, Sean, for you to just clearly articulate, which is, you know, the question from Richard is, isn't a Facebook page something that's supposed to be exclusive to individuals and disallowed for corporations or organizations? Can you speak to that?
Well, you know, that's a very good question. There is a personal versus a professional Facebook page that is up on Facebook, and so you can have both. What has changed now is that you can still manage it the same, but people's interaction are different. So what you're asking people to do is like a organization or like a professional person. So, for example, Cory Booker, mayor of Newark, I like his profile. I don't pretend to that he's going to put information out there. I don't imagine, since he's a smart social media user, that I'm going to learn a lot of personal information that maybe his closest friends and college buddies are going to learn. He probably has his own page for that. But what's out there and what's out there for multitudes of organizations is their own page.
That's great, Sean. Oh, hold on, I think I might have lost you guys for a sec.
What I also want to say is that I know a lot of these things tend to scare people. And as we say in the book, the same rules apply. The same rules apply if you are experienced as a fundraiser, as a nonprofit in direct mail, or individual giving. Then get ready to lead in the social media arena, because those same tools and techniques that you use to engage donors can be applied here. If you run volunteer programs, you are going to bring such value to your volunteers by connecting with them through social media and giving them the tools they need to be successful.
That's great. Thanks, Sean. And yeah, I think a big part of what shines through in your chapter in the book is don't be afraid, just kind of go for it, and don't be afraid to experiment. The one big thing is to beware the empty store phenomenon, and to be sure that before you do engage in any kind of social media activity, that you have a plan of how you're going to staff it, how you're going to make sure there's updated content and there's something there for people to look at, so you're not launching a presence and then kind of forgetting about it. Since it doesn't just take care of itself, it is key to sort of nurture that community. A couple other questions about Facebook. Lauren was asking about whether or not you should create a group within your page on Facebook. And also Gary asked about within Facebook pages, can you send out invites to events like you can with groups?
I believe that you can. And to the first questions, yes, you can create groups because it also depends on the organization, your mission, and what you have you want to engage people in. For example, at the Center for Environmental Health, we are actually looking at this very thing because we have 3 campaigns: Safe Business Practices, Safe Consumer Products, and Safe Food, Air, and Water. Now, some people may be interested in just one specific campaign, like Safe Business Practices. Others may be interested in everything that we have because a lot of these issues sometimes tend to overlap. And so we're looking at this. It's a very apt question. I don't really have a clear answer other than to say you can do that. It really depends on whether you want to keep people separate from things. It's also like if you're using an online information system, like you're sending out action alerts, and you have a email program that you're utilizing, there are times when you want to engage everyone, and there are times when you want to engage people that are just concerned with one thing. Now, you might be able to utilize, we're able to utilize our action alert system on that, whether if somebody is in Chicago, they might be interested either in an event or legislation that's coming up in Illinois, that we wouldn't send that out to our whole national list. And then there are times when we want to engage with everyone. And so again, the same rules apply. You want to bring that practice, that methodology to how you use Facebook. And then to really provide support for what Darian said, you have to keep these things fresh. You have to dedicate some staff time or some really dedicated volunteer time to maintaining your social media, particularly Facebook. My colleague, Nikki Noble, and co-author of the online peer-to-peer fundraising chapter, says if you don't update in 24 hours, you are stale. You are not continuing relevant. You have to keep some kind of message out there. And it doesn't just necessarily need to be you. If you can find a way to engage your supporters who can post up on your page to get information up there, then do that and have them continue to drive the conversation as well.
Absolutely. And I think that is a really key point is, even though it's important to be putting some content up and make sure that there's something on the shelves, to use the empty store analogy, you're not the only person stocking the shelves, right? The whole point of social media is actively engaging your community in creating content and spreading the message and then distributing that. So, Sean, you mentioned Nikki, and again, she's your co-author on the peer-to-peer fundraising chapter, Nonprofit Management 101. I know that you two also do a lot of presenting together, and at one of your recent presentations, you really talked about the concept of open dialogue as it relates to social media and looking at the difference between email communication, one-way communication, and the social media landscape. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of those points.
Right. Well, so here's how we create an open dialogue. It is, as you said, very different from email. And different channels, as we say here, have different capabilities. But email is like a walkie-talkie. I'm sending something to you, you're sending something to me. The same thing is happening in your instant messages, your tweet, and your text, right? But with social media, once you're putting something up out there and allowing people to comment on it, well, you've kind of lost some sense of control. That shouldn't be something that is as worrisome as you might think, because in most cases you have the opportunity to control sort of what stays up on the page, but where people are commenting, but also you want people to get a bit of fervor for your organization. You want them to be able to share the message of what you're doing, and by giving them the opportunity to give you feedback, I think that provides you with a wonderful tool of learning a lot about this potential volunteer, this potential donor, and how to engage with them, and then turning things around. You know, we do this so much in our own lives, and people, particularly people in the volunteer sector, where people come up to us and say, hey, you know what you need? And when you're you aren't resource rich, you can then turn that around and say, yes, we do need a newsletter. Yes, we do need this. Is that something that you can help with? That's something that all smart nonprofit professionals learn early on, is how to take that feedback and then turn it around to the person who gave it and get them engaged. And that is something that you are getting by the bucket load by providing an opportunity for people to create dialogue. And it's also, when people feel engaged, as opposed to what we have here about a monologue, they feel like, wow, I'm being heard. Wow, my contribution, not only my donation and not only my time, but who I am as a person is validated, which it only inspires people more to get more involved and to continue to do more for your organization.
That's great. Thanks, Sean. And, you know, I want to transition into talking about Twitter in a second, because I know that there's a lot of buzz about that. And for those of you that don't know, you know, Facebook has over 600 million people that have used it in the last 30 days. Twitter's over 200. So this is also a huge tool that we saw really get a lot of attention with everything that happened in Egypt and Wisconsin, actually. There was just a tremendous amount of information being passed very quickly through Twitter. And so we'll get into that in one sec. But there is one other question around Facebook that I did want to bring up, because Mindy had a great question about how do you get people to like your nonprofit page. It sounds like they've got 500 people for their cause and only 90 for their page so far. So they're doing some things like having a link on the website, putting the invitation and staff signatures, and in their monthly e-newsletter. But what other ideas, Sean, would you recommend for folks that are trying to get folks to like them, or at least to like their Facebook page?
First of all, I think what you're doing is right on the money. That is great. You need to engage everybody on your team, your employees and so forth, to send out that stuff by their email signature and so forth. What you could also do is on the causes, have people, you know, post to those people, let them know that they can also like you, like promote that regularly, and ask your followers to promote that to their people. When you directly ask somebody to put something up on their Facebook and do it, of course you're not going to get 100% response, but people really appreciate that. Wow, you know, I'm not just posting up about this wild party that we went to, or about my dog. You want me to like share this information? Well, if you have, just as I said earlier, really harnessed the relationship and made them feel valued, you can get them to do things like that and to get their friends involved. So take that message to your question. How do you get people to like you more? Keep sending out messages and asking your supporters to share that message for you as well. I hope that answers your question.
That's great. Thanks, Sean. You know, I want to quickly point out one example. I'm going to send out the link right now, which is for those of you that may be familiar with Guy Kawasaki. He's actually going to be one of the keynotes at the Social Media for Nonprofits conference series I mentioned. He just launched a new book called Enchantment, and he has a Facebook page that he does a really great job of getting people to sign up for. I'm sending that link out right now. But you know, basically what he does is he does the kind of dangling carrot approach, where first and foremost it's really crucial to go through your collective network, whether that's your contacts, the organizations, or you know, your staff and boards and other supporters' contacts, and invite people to the cause and to the page so that they do like you. But the other thing is, to the extent you can include some bait, basically. You know, so what Guy has done on his website is, you know, he gives you the free chapter of a book, or you know, there's different sort of prizes basically that you get, and you only get access to those once you like his page. So that kind of dangling carrot approach is something that you know, seems to work very effectively in this case. And he's certainly one of you know, the gurus around social media and how to leverage that for a cause. So let's transition on, because one of the things that Guy does a lot of work with and I mentioned is one of the things we want to talk about in this call is Twitter and exactly how that can be used for social change organizations and for employee programs at corporations that are looking to engage their staff. So let's talk a little bit about Twitter if you can, Sean.
Sure. So Twitter is 140 characters, and what does that mean? That means you have what I hope it means for you and you understand is it provides you with a very small amount of space to communicate your message. But what I like to think of it as, it is your elevator speech, honed down to something as short as possible so that you can get your information out and information out quickly. I include this quote from Jack Dorsey in the slide because I think that really indicates what some of the benefits are of Twitter. It's about transparency, which something I think is a buzzword, but very indicative of what our culture and our community is looking for right now. For donors, it's where is my money going? For volunteers, it's what are my efforts supporting? And also the immediacy. How do I get information out to my supporters or about my organization right now? And you have seen through a multitude of examples that the media will say, oh, this was said on Twitter, or we asked this organization. They weren't available for comment at the time, but we see on Facebook they've put, X or Y, and that allows you to get your message out exactly as you would like it, but in a short way to lots and lots of people. And that is also, in really getting into this, I think we can move to the next slide, is there are ways to really send this out to and engage your constituency. So just as we said with Facebook, the retweet, which is just a simple click for those of you who, and I know we're speaking to a wide and diverse audience of people, but there is an opportunity for those of you who don't know of Twitter well, there's an opportunity very easily after you read something to click on it and retweet it. And what does that do? That sends that out to your followers. So anyone that is following your organization or you as a person can learn what is important to you or what you think is important. So I follow any other number of other nonprofits and people, and if they say something that resonates with me, I send that out to my folks. And that helps define me as a Twitter user to the people that follow me. That also, for organizations, defines you, your values, and your the things that you think your people would be that are following you or you want to follow you would be interested in. The other details about Twitter are that for the busy professional, it's great because it is like Facebook also is mobile, and if you are outside of your organization and something is happening and you can't get back to the office, you can send out information. It's particularly helpful for disaster relief organizations to send out information, and we've seen this in the political protests around the world, people sending out information from right where they're experiencing it.
That's great. Thanks, Sean. A couple things I did want to mention in terms of some folks you may want to follow on Twitter. And similar to the Facebook page question and how do you get folks to like you, I just want to quickly point out that the best way to get people to follow you on Twitter, if you're looking to build up a Twitter following, is to follow other people. So to go out there and look for folks that are focused on similar issues, and then to actually go ahead and follow them, and very often they will turn around and return the favor. So that's a quick and easy way to do that.
And that's something also, a good point, Darian, to bring up. If you look at people's numbers, a lot of people and their numbers of followers is probably really close to the amount of people that are following them, and vice versa, because a lot of people do this. So unless you are Ashton Kutcher or some well-known celebrity who can just say, oh, they're on Twitter and hundreds of thousands of people go to them, you should see a relevancy in terms of the people that you're following to the people that are following you, because a lot of people will reciprocate.
Great, thanks, Sean. I just sent out a couple Twitter handles of folks that you may want to know about. There's Sean's in there, there's mine, and both of us do quite a bit of tweeting about the nonprofit sector and social media issues. There's also the Social Media for Nonprofits Twitter handle that I just sent out, as well as Nonprofits 101, which is the companion for the book. And then two others I just added in there. One is Engage Joe, which is Joe Sullivan. He's one of the book contributors. He works with 350.org and does a lot of work around climate change, but also is very active in tweeting about social media. And then finally is Beth Cantor, and she also is one of the contributors for the book, one of the keynotes for the conference series, and does quite a bit of tweeting about issues related to nonprofit management and social media. So let's move on in the presentation here. And, you know, the next thing that I wanted to get into, somebody mentioned as we were talking about the EQCA campaign that reminded them of Charity Water and their efforts. And there's certainly some overlaps there, but, you know, realistically, truth is truth, and the best practices just tend to emerge. For example, you know, the whole donate your birthday to charity concept, which Charity Water has been really one of the people with Scott Harrison as their leader that have championed this model and raised millions of dollars from this. So Sean, I wanted to hear what you had to say about Charity Water as a best practice, as a case study, and what are some of the things that they've done so effectively that have led them to be so successful with their social media fundraising efforts?
Well, I want to thank the person that said that, because I stumbled on to Charity Water through Twitter. So many people, whether they were celebrities or other people that I follow that I care about what they have to say, were tweeting about Charity Water. So I went and I found something like this, where I could learn more through a video. And we're going to say more about a video in a second, but I was really touched to hear that people thought that might come from, you know, EQCA. What Friend Factor that I talked about also uses this cute video from one of the stars of A Modern Family. And video really should support your message. And video, for those who've been in the field just the time that I have, of 15 years, it used to be so expensive to get a video made for your organization. And if you want to show that at a major gala and so forth, you can spend thousands of dollars to do that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but you can, for not many thousands of dollars, get videos made by people who are experimenting with it. And people themselves, such as your supporters, can even put up a video introduction to their charity, and they should be encouraged to do so. And so you have something like Charity Water, which is on the screen now, and what they do is provide water, and one of the places they do it is in the Central African Republic. But I also want to note here, they have an overlay, which is something that emerged through usage. So the amount of nonprofits using YouTube led to this YouTube developing this overlay, which what I mean by that is where you say give a person clean water, and 100% of your gift directly funds water wells. And it's like, oh, wow. So so many times there's this whole movement, and Darian alluded to this earlier, this whole movement to when we want to make it simple for people to give. And we also know, for those of us that are on the call in the nonprofit field, know that it's, hard to get people's attention and then right to action. And we know that also that if people hear a message from us right then and there, there's more likely to give a gift than, if they do it later. The people who have been in direct mail know this. If the mailing goes out, you're going to get a great and greatest response, rather, right away. People are going to get that in the mailbox. They're going to be touched by it. They're going to go grab that checkbook. They're going to take the remit envelope you send them and send it in. And then a great minority of other supporters will put that aside with the bills, will do that later in the month, and then that check will actually come rolling into you. And so simplicity. You want to make it as easy as possible, and they've done this with this overlay so that you know exactly after watching this video what you can do, what it will do, and where you can go to make a donation. Click right there.
That's great. And if we can go to the next slide real quick, I know that the other thing that that Charity Water has done so effectively is that they have really, and this comes up time and time again in almost all of the fundraising chapters in the book, and there's probably about 8 of them, is the importance of mapping donations to impact, right? The idea here is that people don't give to you, they give through you, is the way that Kay Sprinkle Grace says it. And the point is, people want to be able to understand, if I give you $20, what does that do? Well, it gives one person safe drinking water. They also, what Charity Water has done so well is they've sort of tied in Google Earth and GPS and a variety of other things, so you can actually see not only, hey, I just donated money to fund a well in sub-Saharan Africa, but exactly which town is that in. You can see it on the map. You can look at video. You can look at photographs from that particular place, and it really humanizes the contributions. They've done that so effectively, and that more than anything else, combined with what Sean talked about earlier, which is this idea of making it easy for people, and the power of a peer ask is really what has led them to raise, I believe it's over $7 million. And I just saw Scott Harrison, the founder, speak, and really just talked about how this has become a grassroots movement. And these folks have also done a really great job encouraging people to donate their birthdays to charity. So those are some of the most important points that we wanted to make. What I'd like to do now is hand it over to the audience for some questions. And so let's so let me look through some of the questions here, and let's see if there's anything else. But people, please feel free to write in any other questions that you may have. Let's see, we already got the, in terms of the conference touring the southwest of the U.S., Lynn Marie asked that question. The closest we're going to the southwest is Los Angeles on August 22nd. But then, let's see. Okay, here's another Twitter question for you, Sean. And what Michael asked is it best to have a single Twitter account for an entire organization, or should separate interests in the organization have separate accounts? Great question.
We need a best practice around this as an industry. We're going through this right at my organization right now because we've opened up an East Coast office, and the people that will follow that will be different. We have a blog that's had its own Twitter handle, as well as the organization as a whole. And so I would say that there's no real easy answer for that. It's all about your capacity to support it and your ability to link all of them with the messages that you want to send out.
Great. Thanks, Sean. Another question, as we talked about donating your birthday, Nate was wondering, what exactly do we mean by that, and how does that work?
So donating your birthday is you give an opportunity for, instead of gifts. It's just like the registry, but so much simpler. If I say, I'm not, in honor of my birthday today, you can give a gift to Charity Water, since they're the charity that we're talking about right now. You can do that. Facebook has made it easy. There's an application there. I can't explain that one out as much in detail, but there's an application there. And there's also on Twitter, you can just provide links really quickly to Charity Water, whatever organization you want. And then you send it out there. And your friends and followers, people you may not even know but follow you on Twitter, they may be likely to support that. I also want to get back to a quick question, the question that was asked earlier, because Sloan put up on the questions, and I don't know if everyone can see it, a really good answer that I didn't give, and I want to shed some light on it, which was that some groups have managed to tie in cause marketing to their social media and to social media following. And what I mean by that is they've gotten a business or a donor to sponsor some small campaign going on Facebook. So for the person that only had 90 likes but had 500 friends for their causes page, if you want likes, well, the way to do that might be saying for every like that we get, we'll get $1. So, oh my gosh, it's so easy. So this organization is going to get $1 from Pepsi or Urban Outfitters or someone else. If all I do is like them, well, it's no cost to me. Of course, I'll go and I'll like them. And what do I get out of that? I get them in my news feed on Facebook. And if I don't like that on Facebook, I can just go over to the right and click that out so I don't get them in my news feed as much. But they've still gotten that $1, and that is one way that groups on this call can think about in terms of keeping people connected and getting people to like them, or getting people, if people, this campaign happened about October 2009, when a group that was charting with cause marketing and Hershey's and Backpack and a children's charity, for everyone who retweeted this message, I believe it was Hershey's, would give $1 to that organization. How hard is it to retweet? It is so simple. And so they generated so much support in that. Pizza Hut did this as well. So for, I believe it was Save the Children. Could be wrong, but something like that. And that's some way in which you want to find ways to use all these tools together. And perhaps you could get a celebrity, or just even your board chair, or even your top volunteer to make a short video to launch that campaign. And you just tie it in through all these different networks.
That's a great point, Sean. And I think, Diane was talking about this idea of, how do we tie in this concept of, a specific target audience and really looking at volunteers in particular to get them to give more to your organization. And I think the point here, Diane, is that first and foremost, it's not just about getting your individual volunteers to give more. It's about looking at each of them as a director of development. Every one of your volunteers, yes, they have the potential to contribute to you individually, but they also have a huge network of, hundreds or even thousands of Facebook friends or Twitter followers, et cetera. And so how do you look a little differently from a fundraising perspective at not only looking at each of them as an individual donor, but someone who can potentially raise money on your behalf? And that really, the donating your birthday is one example of that. But also the cause-related marketing campaigns that Sean was just mentioning. So the concept here, again, to go back to the theme of the conversation today, is about making it easy for them, about asking them, about facilitating a peer ask so they can make asks on your behalf. And that may be, the technological back end so that it's very easy for them to do a campaign. It may be as simple as just asking them to do this. It may be about providing them with some of the template copy so that they can just hit forward and cut and paste messaging, but anything you can do to sort of meet them where they're at and make it easy for them to support your efforts is really what's going to be crucial in your success. But Sean, I wanted to transition into a question from Samuel, because it looks like he's working with a small nonprofit, and they're wondering about, when working with developing things on a small budget, how do you go about getting pro bono support so that you can implement some of this and avoid the empty store phenomenon that we talked about, et cetera?
Well, absolutely. Many nonprofits are understaffed and under-resourced, and this social media is a great way to turn to volunteers when we can, and it allows you to harness the volunteers in new and creative ways to do this. So you do not need to be a large organization to do this. This Friend Factor group was just started by a few individuals, and once again, I would just encourage you to get all of your supporters to use the pages, to use the opportunity to comment on your pages and to drive traffic to you and create the messages themselves rather than handle it yourself. And what also I find for nonprofits that are under-resourced, we've been putting the fact that we can communicate our messages into our foundation proposals. And the foundations that are supporting us have commented specifically, not that this is necessarily where they have funded us, but that they're excited to know that the message of what we're doing is reaching so many more people. So I would encourage you to also think about that, to think about if you are really making a dedicated effort to harness the excitement and interest of people online to support you, whether it's getting more volunteers, getting people to contact their legislators, or make a direct financial contribution to you, you should ask for support from that, from larger institutions, to continue to promote those efforts. I hope that answers the question.
That's great. Thanks, Sean. And, just really quickly, I did want to mention, Patty asked about explaining hashtags. Those are really used on Twitter. That's the kind of pound sign that you'll see a lot on tweets, on Twitter posts, which are used to track conversations. So that can be helpful. Like, for example, there was a hashtag for this particular webinar so that you can very easily search for that and see what conversations and posts have been made about this discussion in particular. And then I also quickly wanted to mention, in terms of John's point about deleting negative comments, I think it's really important to realize that, in this new world where information flows so freely, the key is really about embracing radical transparency. And the reality is you're not going to be able to contain information anyway, so how can you get out in front of it? How can you respond to it? And how can you be open and transparent about your programs, about your operations? And if someone posts a negative comment, that's okay. Not everybody's going to love you. And as opposed to trying to cover that up, it's really about engaging that person in a dialogue. And that was really one of the themes that we had throughout this entire call, has been the difference between dialogue and monologue-based solutions. And so, Sean, I wanted to hand it to you for some closing thoughts as we get ready to wrap up here.
Well, thank you. This has been great. I hope everyone has found this beneficial, and I know that we have people coming from different backgrounds to do this. One thing I want to talk about that gets off of Darian, that goes with Darian's point there, is you can really benefit so much by the free exchange of information and ideas utilized through social media. And one specific thing that comes to mind is in the early part of the last decade, around 2000, 2001, I remember Covenant House, the organization I worked for, spent probably tens of thousands of dollars. I know they get a discount in the New York Daily News, but tens of thousands of dollars to advertise. They had been around for over 29 years at that point. They wanted to hear from their alumni, people who had benefited from the organization. Today, there are regularly alumni or people that benefited from Covenant House services going to their Facebook page and telling their stories. You didn't have that just a few years ago, and you need to find ways to work to make these free applications benefit for you. Can you imagine the impact that that has on donors when they see that? No longer just responding to pleas in the mail and wondering if the money is going to the right place and helping these kids. We'd get those type of questions all the time. Now you, Covenant House, can point to a resource and say, go online, go to our Facebook, and there's real stories right up there, these success and testimonials. And another question I want to highlight, that was cost. These tools are free. What is not free is your time and your staff time. And you need to find ways in which you can start dedicating and maintaining social media. Nikki Noble, I want to end by quoting her. She says, when you ask the question, can you afford it? But what you really should be asking yourself is, can you afford it not to? And I think that is absolutely the correct question.
That's great. Thanks so much, Sean. And I know that that the folks over at VolunteerMatch have agreed to not only send out this PowerPoint as a PDF, but also to send out the links and the Twitter handles and things like that were posted. We have quite a few additional questions we didn't get time to answer today. I do want to encourage you, those of you that are in or near any of the 7 cities that Social Media for Nonprofits will be touring this year, to join us for those as we go quite a bit deeper down the rabbit hole and really look at some of the practical tips and tools for fundraising, marketing, advocacy, recruitment, and other solutions that nonprofits need, including how to engage your volunteers in fundraising, in peer-to-peer, marketing efforts. So I want to thank everyone's time. This is sort of like the Wild West where the rules are being written as we go, but it's an exciting opportunity as we enter this everyone is smarter than anyone world, and as we really look at information flowing much more rapidly and much more freely than it's ever done in the past, that it creates unparalleled opportunities for nonprofits and community-based organizations, as well as community-minded corporations. So I want to thank all of you for your interest, for your great questions, and we'll hope to see you at Social Media for Nonprofits or sometime soon. And I want to hand it over now to our gracious hosts at VolunteerMatch, who are going to share a couple upcoming events.
Thank
Megan?
you, Darian and Sean. This has been a great webinar and obviously could go on for another 2 or 3 hours. So everyone on the call will get a copy of the slides as mentioned. You can also stay connected with the resources at VolunteerMatch by checking out our corporate CSR blog, volunteeringiscsr.org. For those of you who have your panel open, in the chat box, Darian has shared a number of links and information about the social media for nonprofit conferences. So definitely read those. I'll leave the webinar service running for a few minutes after so that you can write those down, and we'll share them after. Also, please join us for our next webinar. It is on Tuesday, June 28th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be hearing from Lindsay Firestone and Diana Fisher at Taproot Foundation. This is a webinar geared towards companies developing pro bono in-house programs, but it may also have some useful tips for the nonprofits on the call on how to engage employees or volunteers in more skilled pro bono service. So thank you again, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you at another webinar.
Thanks, everyone. Take care and have a great day.